Well, they're back to fighting again in Washington. The president has come back from playing golf with Tiger Woods. I guess that would make you fight if you're a duffer, but he took lessons, I might add, from Tiger Woods' former coach, and maybe his golf game improved. I don't know, but he's back to fight the Republicans. And he's talking about the horrible things that will happen to our country if this so-called sequester is put in place. The Wall Street Journal had something rather interesting. They said this is 3.2% of the total federal spending. And I ask you very cogently, would 3.2% of your spending destroy your life? And Christie's here, and I will ask you that question. Would 3.2% cut in your overall spending destroy your life?
No, but I mean, if these cuts continue in terms of, in terms of the spending, I think it's great. Just don't keep raising the taxes. That infuriates me.
That is precisely what the president says. I've got to raise taxes in order to cover this terrible sequester, and the Republicans are saying not on your life. So you're exactly right. You can't raise taxes. No. But 3.2% is nothing. It's peanuts. We've got a $3.6 trillion budget, and they want to take out about 80 or 90 billion dollars out of it. I mean, it's peanuts, and it's amazing. But in any event, this is the gamesmanship, and they just want to keep getting more and more money. I'll tell you where they could start. They could start by taking it's $550 million. It goes to Planned Parenthood. The government could stop that in a heartbeat. If that's the big problem, then they can leave the lights on the Washington Monument.
Well, Pat, the bottom line is this. If they just can't reach a deal by March 1st, automatic spending cuts will go into effect. But just how serious could those cuts be? Ephraim Graham has the story.
President Obama is turning up the pressure on congressional Republicans.
People will lose their jobs. The unemployment rate might tick up again.
$85 billion in automatic federal spending cuts are set to go into effect in only 10 days. They're known as sequestration, and they focus on accounts that fund federal agencies and departments, including the military.
Now, if Congress allows this meat cleaver approach to take place, it will jeopardize our military readiness. It will eviscerate job-creating investments in education and energy and medical research.
The president said if these cuts go into place, it will be because Republicans were not willing to work with Democrats. But Republicans are fighting back. They say the cuts will happen, and the president should be held responsible. They argue the sequester was his idea. And some point out he threatened in November of 2011 to veto any attempt to stop the sequester.
We're here because the president, back in the last session of Congress, refused to cut spending in any place. And therefore, we've wound up with a sequester.
Critics say the president is trying to make the American people believe these cuts could be catastrophic, when in reality, they go fairly unnoticed.
The entire sequester cut is $85 billion out of a nearly $4 trillion budget. It is nothing. It is not catastrophic. It's barely noticeable. It's what they spend on Post-it notes at Commerce.
The president's opponents also say the sequestration controversy is about one thing: more taxes. He wants House Republicans to raise them. But GOP lawmakers say the president already got the tax increases during negotiations over the fiscal cliff.
The Republican Party is not in any way going to trade spending cuts for a tax increase.
But Motley says taxes are only a small part of the bigger picture.
Right now, his objective, whether it's immigration, whether it's sequester, whether it's these tax increases, is to make the Republican Party fight with them amongst themselves and have inner division in the hopes of creating enough turmoil in the party that they lose control of the House in 2014.
In addition to standing firm on the spending cuts, Republicans' proposals include eliminating loopholes and subsidies in the tax code. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Well, what I think the American people should do is call on the Congress, especially the Republicans, to stand tough on this one. Again, $85 billion out of $3.6 trillion. It's nothing. It's nothing in comparison. And it's up to the president, but he decided on this sequester. It was his idea. He was given the Simpson Bowl plan. It was, in my opinion, a brilliant plan to make across the board analysis of where the needs were and where the potential revenue sources were. I mean, it was William. He didn't even bring it up. He didn't mention it. It was his committee. He appointed them. They gave him a report. He puts it in the bottom drawer someplace, doesn't pay any attention to it. It's amazing what they're trying to do, and the American people are just not fools, and he must think they are. But the time has come, and if you want to let your voice be known, that's Capitol Hill, 202-224-3121. Tell your congressman, your senator, hang tough on this thing, because, as Christy pointed out, we just don't need any more taxes raised right now. They just raised them, and they're hitting people pretty hard. And this Obamacare is hurting people dramatically in terms of health care. It's dramatic, the danger that is taking place. So anyhow, so much for that, but it's going to be the debate. But I think if there ever was a false one, it's this one. The president creates a sequester, then he comes up to fight against the sequester, and he said it's the Republicans' fault that they don't come off the sequester that he proposed. None of us are that foolish, Mr. President. Well, the dangers of big spending are catching up with some of American states as well as the federal government, and also some of the cities, especially Detroit. Is Detroit bankrupt? Lee Webb has more on that.
Pat, certainly Detroit is in a financial emergency, and now it's up to Michigan's governor to fix it. A state review team has determined the Motor City has no satisfactory plan to resolve a serious financial problem. It's basically been living on borrowed funds for the past 8 years, and Governor Rick Snyder now has 30 days to decide if an emergency manager should take charge of Detroit's finances.
Obviously, the cash condition that the city finds itself in has been a strain on the city. If you look, the city's been running deficits really every year since 2005, and they've been masking over those in a way with some long-term borrowings.
Some financial experts believe bankruptcy may be Detroit's only remedy, but the state treasurer says he's confident other solutions can be found if the city and state work together. The price of oil may soon go above $100, and that, of course, could mean even higher prices at the gas pump. Oil has been moving steadily higher in the last few months, from a low of $77 last summer to $98 a few weeks ago. Oil has not been above $100 for nearly a year now, but if oil does keep going higher, that could take more money out of our pockets for gas and act as a drag on the economy. The Obama administration is planning a response to the ongoing cyber attacks against the U.S. government and corporations. An internet security company traced more than 140 major cyber attacks to a unit of China's military based in Shanghai. The company found evidence of an unrelenting campaign of so-called cyber stealing of government data and corporate trade secrets. A federal report out today considers fines and other trade actions against China or any other country guilty of cyber espionage. Pat?
Well, if you like fiction, Tom Clancy, who wrote that Hunt for the Red October, which was made a movie and a bestseller, he's written a book called Threat Vector that is very well detailed about what can happen if a few Chinese geniuses get together and put on some serious computer hacking on the United States. And the thing of it is, they're able to close down with these things. They can close down our power grid. They can shut down the transportation network. They can shut down the ground control for our airlines. They can wreak havoc with the stock markets in this country and around the world. I mean, it's just incredible how brittle we are in relation to the computers we use. They're such great tools, but if they go bad, your society is in trouble, and the Chinese are exploiting it for all they're worth. And not just the Chinese, there are others who are doing the same. There are Russian mobs that have been involved in the thing, criminal enterprises that have been hacking in. I think one computer I'm familiar with, the person in charge told me that they were getting about 300,000 hits a day, attacks against just a, educational institution. Who knows what's being done to the Defense Department? So it's going to take all the genius power we've got, but nevertheless, to think that our military may be compromised by something like this. It's time we do make some serious changes. But as I say, for fiction, that Clancy book is a thriller. Lee?
Pat, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added a surprise member to his new coalition government, Tzipi Livni, a politician who's known as a dove in Israel. Netanyahu, of course, is considered a hawk. Livni, though, will serve as the justice minister, and she will be in charge of peace efforts with the Palestinians. Livni led the last significant round of peace talks 4 years ago, and she's been a fierce critic of Netanyahu. But Patty promises to make a serious attempt to reach a peace agreement with the Palestinians. Do you think he'll do it?
Well, he's going to do what he has to do to stay in power. He needs 61 votes in the Knesset, and I think he personally won about 31. So he has to have a coalition. And Tzipi Livni, of course, is Labor Party, and they have a big bloc, and I guess he's more comfortable with her. But it's rather unusual because they were avowed enemies. But, you know, politics, as they say, makes strange bedfellows. And so I'm not saying Netanyahu and Tzipi are bedfellows, but I guess that's a metaphor that's used. But nevertheless, I'm sure I'd like to see him stay in power. He's a good man, but I hope they don't tie him down so much where he can't act forcefully in behalf of Israel. Lee?
2.5 million Americans have epilepsy. Many of them suffer needlessly, though, because they're unaware of surgery that can help them. Lori Johnson reports the operation can free epileptics of their medications and their seizures.
Rachel Kreidler's epilepsy kept her prisoner in her own home. She couldn't drive and was afraid to be around people for fear of having a seizure.
Yeah, it was rough.
She tried all kinds of medicines which caused terrible side effects, and they didn't even work. Then she heard about epilepsy surgery.
Epilepsy surgery can help many people who have been taking medicine all their life, continuing to seize, and not being able to participate in life.
Cleveland Clinic neurosurgeon Dr. William Bingaman has been performing epilepsy surgery for the last 15 years. It involves finding the spot in the brain where the seizures originate and cutting it out.
From a personality standpoint, in other words, you know, we've all seen movies where people have frontal lobectomies and frontal lobotomies, and they're never quite the same. It's really not like that with this type of surgery.
Although epilepsy surgery has a high success rate, to the patient, the idea is daunting, to say the least.
I talk to God daily throughout the 10+ years of having seizures, and came to a point where I really felt, I heard him say, now's the time to have the surgery. And so it gave me the courage to move forward with something so incredibly scary.
Now she's so glad she did. Her seizures disappeared. She's off her medicine and lives a normal life. She drives and even went on a mission trip to Africa.
It will be, as of this February, 2 years. And 2 years now that I've been seizure-free, praise God.
So for people with epilepsy whose medicine isn't working, epilepsy surgery is a little-known option that could stop their seizures. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
That's great news. Well, more evidence that sitting too long is bad for your health. Researchers led by a professor from Kansas State University studied 63,000 Australian men, and the study finds that those who sat for more than 4 hours a day were significantly more likely to report having a chronic disease like cancer or arthritis, and the potential for more serious disease increases if they sit longer. Those sitting for more than 8 hours a day had the highest risk. And Pat, I want to show you our control room. These guys, you know, they're back there and they've heard what I've said, and so look, they're out of their seats and standing, and good for them.
Well, we'll give them a...
We'll see how long that lasts, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. It's just, see, what a thing to scare people. All the people in offices sit. They work behind computers, and they sit. We sit here. I'm sitting here, and I read. I don't read standing up and walking around.
Yeah, but you know what? In offices, Pat, people are doing different things so that they don't have to sit. Like, for instance, even at the 700 Club, there's a lot of the producers who have their desk raised, and so the chair is gone, and they stand.
Well,
I'm not one of them, but there are many.
They have treadmills that they put slow-moving treadmills so people are walking all the time. Let's ride horses. Let the horse do the work.
The parents of a Texas teenager have backed down after trying to force her to have an abortion. The 16-year-old girl is 10 weeks pregnant. She filed suit against her parents for their alleged attempts to make her abort the child. She also claims they threatened her physically if she didn't go through with the abortion. The girl and her 16-year-old boyfriend say they never considered terminating the pregnancy. Their attorneys say this is a major victory in the fight against abortion.
Right now it's a victory for life, and we're glad that they stood up for the right to life, and that they recognized, our client recognized, that her unborn child had a right to live, and she wanted to protect that.
The parents have also given consent for their daughter to marry her boyfriend and the father of the baby. 2 courts in Europe have ruled in favor of homosexuals seeking to adopt children. In Germany, the High Court ruled that one member in a civil partnership can adopt their partner's stepchild or adopted child. Gay couples are not allowed to marry in Germany, but are recognized in civil unions. However, they still are not allowed to adopt children as a couple. In another case, the European Court of Human Rights overruled an Austrian court ruling forbidding a lesbian to adopt her partner's son. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.